Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War, Warhammer 2, Cool Wake Match gameplay. This time around we are on the Doomglades, playing as the Tomb Kings, who are very out of place here on this lush forest map, against the Wood Elves, to whom this is basically home. So, looking at the map, looking at the unit layout, you can immediately see things are going to be messy very, very quickly. Or rather, not quickly, but the things are going to be very messy. I went with a pretty conventional Tomb King build against Wood Elves, masses of infantry. Tomb Kings, while I don't agree with some players who say this is the worst match or this is a really tough matchup for the Tomb Kings, I do think it's perfectly manageable. I do think the Tomb Kings really have to go out of their comfort zone of monsters and heavy stuff and go in for a bunch of infantry and win with man spam. So that's basically what we've done here. It's going to be a very infantry focused build. You can see our front line here, 5 Tomb Guard backed by Cetra on foot, in fact. If we look at his spells, I did decide to bring, I think, a decent collection of spells. Basically, Unyielding Will, or not Unyielding Will, Narrow's Incantation of Protection, basically just to proc the my trait, to heal my troops. Wrath of Tra, of course, our only other spell is Usurion's Incantation of Vengeance, so that's a nice little AoE slow, or not AoE, but it's targeted slow and damage spell. And then we have the Blessed Blade of Tra, which applies blind, and honestly, with his AP and anti-large and the Blessed Blade of Tra, if my opponent decided to bring something like Durthu, I could definitely do a decent job against him with Cetra. For my front line, as mentioned, it's a whole bunch of Tomb Guard. I have tried to go cheap on the heroes, so we've only got Cetra there. Front line of Tomb Guard, these guys will trade really well with anything the Wood Elves throw at you. I think they even trade well with War Dancers, much less anything else. Cost-wise, they're just so efficient. Behind that, 4 units of Skeleton Archers. Now, these guys won't outrange Wood Elf Archers, but they do have a decent enough range, and they, through sheer numbers, they don't break, obviously, so they're not going to fall apart like a lot of other factions Archers, where the Wood Elves put like 2 volleys into you, you're out, and you're doomed. These guys will hold, and they'll just keep shooting through thick and thin. So we have the Blessed Legion of Demonetization here in the center. We've got 3 units of normal Skeleton Archers. They are flanked by the King Nikesha Scorpion Legion, as well as Skeleton Spears. And in the back, we do have 2 Shopti Great Bows to match the Elves in the range game, or at least actually outrange them with 255 range. Finally, in the very back, we do have a single unit of Nakar and Horsemen, simply to provide us with a little bit of a flexible force. But immediately, of course, as this game started, I had no idea where my opponent was. And so I decided to push. I figured, you know what, he'll come out and fight me at some point. He might also be right behind this ridge. This map, Doomglades, has this really annoying knoll in the center where, like, if you don't climb up it, your opponent can easily be, like, right here, and you can't see him. So I decided to push forward. But my opponent had a very clever ambush here. You can see he's got Wild Riders hidden in the trees. He's got 3 units of Dryads in the trees here, as well as a Branch Wraith with Call of the Woods, Earthblood, Milkas Miasma, and Penumbral Pendulum, as well as Blessing of the Ancients, which is very useful here in the woods. I do push forward a tiny bit. You can see, though, I'm already about to be pincered. My opponent did Vanguard Wardens of Citadel, as well as 4 units of Deepwood Scouts here in the back corner. These guys are all stalked, so they are sneaking up on me. I have no idea they're there, and I'm about to get pincered here in the Mac line. And finally, for his front, if you could call it a front line, given that he has no shooting to cover, he's got 4 units of Eternal Guard with shields, obviously to deal with large and provide some AP. Backed by a single Glade Lord. Actually, it's a Glade Lord. It's the male version. That is surprising. I actually didn't realize this in game, but he's got the normal Glade Lord, who does have the Banner of the Hunter King, which is actually cool AoE. I never realized. I think this is a new addition. I'm going to have to look into this some more. But either way, he brought the Banner of the Hunter King. So you learn something new every day. I didn't even realize this was the Glade Lord, but either way, he's got the Banner of the Hunter King, and he's got the Call of the Woods, so that's a double +5 melee attack, which means all these guys are getting +10 melee attack. That is incredibly. I've never seen. That is awesome. I'm actually gonna have to look into this. But either way, I'm probably gonna have to. At some point, I'm gonna have to make a video using the male Glade Lord. But either way, he's got this Vanguard of or front line of Eternal Guard. And he's immediately collapsing on me, trying to pincer me. Over here in my Tomb Guard, I'm simply pushing up on the ridge. I have no idea these guys are there, just by passing like 2 feet away. My skeletons are blind; they can't see him. So we're just pushing forward. I do believe there's a Penumbral Pendulum that goes off, and I knew my opponent had a caster somewhere, but I didn't want to. You don't want to be detaching your force. If you've got an infantry heavy army, you don't want to start detaching units and sending them off on their own. That is, in my opinion, a quick way to lose a large chunk of your force. You can see I'm pivoting my whole army here because I wasn't sure if my opponent was back here still. I wanted to be certain, and I didn't want to just push over the ridge and suddenly get ambushed. So you can see I'm pivoting everything. I'm moving my Skeleton Archers back. It's shortly going to happen. You can see I'm trying to keep my formation intact. It's a very slow game. Starting off, there's not much going on. You can see a Penumbral Pendulum goes down, but I immediately see it, and I'm just going to move forward. It's barely going to clip the back of these Tomb Guard. Going to damage them a little bit. I don't know if that was a normal cast or overcast. Now, I did have an idea that at this point that my opponent probably has a caster hidden in here, but shortly thereafter, I do decide to, I do actually start taking fire from the Deepwood Scouts, so I decide to respond to those. I decide that's the priority to deal with. I pull my Necron Horsemen forward because I can't, if I push them into this mob, they would get immediately annihilated. So we're actually going to turn around. You can see the Ushabti Great Bows are going to start pivoting, and they're going to start raining fire in on these Deepwood Scouts, and you can see the archers already shifting. The Tomb Guard is actually going to stay faced forward once again. I had an inkling that my opponent had some forces either in the woods here or in the woods there, because obviously this was just a mob of Deepwood Scouts. But I'm going to start pivoting my army around, and you can see I'm going to move the spears back to try to interdict and defend this backline. Now the huge volley comes out from the Deepwood Scouts. Necron Horsemen getting really badly mauled. In turn, we are going to unleash some fire on these Wardens of Cithrall. They are being debuffed by the King Nikesh's Scorpion Legion, with only 10 armor. These guys are going to get badly mauled. And this, although it might not seem like a good trade for me, is actually a pretty convenient trade. The Necron Horsemen are not particularly expensive. So if I can wipe out most of these Wardens of Cithrall, that is a huge catch for me. You can see they actually get snagged here. Now my opponent gets a nice little Penumbral Pendulum, though it was actually, I think, cast a little too far forward, so it doesn't do as much, and it wasn't an overcast version. So the Tomb Guard kind of tanked through it, and now I can see the ambush is finally sprung. And my opponent has basically traded a 650 point unit for what I do believe is a 1300 point unit with the Wardens of Cithrall. So a very bad trade in my opinion. And now I'm going to push my archers forward and start wilting these Deepwood Scouts. They've only got 60 models, and I've already got the Ushabti Great Bows firing in on them. They were absolutely demolishing them. Now granted, I'm going to start losing some skeleton archers as well. But as we discussed, they are going to hold reasonably well. They are skeletons, so they just don't rout. And these Deepwood Scouts are not having a good time. They really can't hold up to this fire, and they are getting demolished. Now over here, my opponent does commit his Dryads. He pulls them out, but I intercept them with the Tomb Guard, who are going to dumpster them really badly in close quarters. And I push Citra in there. Breastplate of Dryad already procced with Searing's Incantation of Vengeance, hitting the Dryads here, doing some decent damage. We're definitely getting some good work in. Now you can see over here the Wardens of Cithrall getting completely destroyed by volleys of archery fire. They got a few kills on the spears, but honestly, this was a terrible trade for my opponent. Losing such an elite unit for honestly and I lost a unit of archers and not even a full unit of Necron Horsemen. My opponent lost a 1300 point unit, which would have been cost efficient in and of itself, but he also lost a lot of Deepwood Scouts there. Unfortunately, he does get his branch wraith on top of my skeleton archer, so I'm going to pull back and try to shoot him down. Over here on the flank, we are still holding. You can see the Eternal Guard trading terribly with the Tomb Guard. And big mistake for my opponent. Now, he did bring those fancy banners to provide support, but then he kept his lords too far back to provide that support. So while he's getting some chip damage in on Cetra, he's just not actually helping these Eternal Guards, so the Eternal Guard are getting dumpstered by the Tomb Guard. You can see the Tomb Guard takes a handful of losses, but the Eternal Guard having a terrible day. He also forgot his Wild Riders, just sitting here in the woods. They're not really doing anything. They probably should have sallied out with the Branch Wraith, but my opponent was probably hoping the pincer me. I'm not entirely sure if he was waiting for the Necron Horsemen or whatever to die, or worried about the spears, but either way, they're not moving. I do get my proc of the Realm of Souls. Now, the Deepwood Scouts fell back, but they're going to rally and come back for another go. You can see they've already taken quite a bit of a beating, so definitely not good for them. Over here, the Tomb Guard are slowly but surely winning. Cetra is in there, beating the snot out of these Eternal Guard in close quarters. Cetra, of course, is even... Oh my goodness, look at that. He like impaled that guy. He's like spinning him around. It's crazy. But Cetra here is just doing an amazing job. Cetra's really pretty solid. He's a pretty solid lord, I think, even in close quarters against infantry models like that, even though he's anti-large. He's a very solid sort of lord in general for just straight up combat. Now I do see my opponent's Wild Riders coming out of the woods. I actually spotted them shortly before my opponent launched his or shortly after my opponent launched his ambush, but you can see I don't really have the tools to stop them. I'm going to cast the Searing's Incantation of Vengeance. I'm going to try to pivot my Ushabti and my archers into them. And actually, here, seeing that the Wild Riders are about to go in and jump on my archers, I'm actually going to throw the Ushabti into the fray. The Ushabti have a 95 armor, even despite all their debuffs. They still have passable melee defense, and they have a lot of mass, so they're actually going to be able to snare a lot of these Wild Riders, tie them down a little bit, especially with the Searing's Incantation of Vengeance in there. Fortunately, my spears are here getting bogged down, but we are able to at least snag one unit, tie them down. I hit him with a Narrow's Incantation of Protection, which is going to provide them with more survivability. And although my opponent gets on some of my archers, it's not the sort of sweep that he needed. If he'd managed to get both of his Wild Riders in there, he would have been able to dumpster my 2 units of archers really decisively, and I would have been in a terrible spot. The Ushabti would probably lose this fight in a long, drawn-out, if this was a long, drawn-out sort of conflict, but it's not going to be, because these guys will hold. They'll do okay, and we're going to start peppering these Wild Riders down. And of course, Citra's going to dive in there. Blessed Blade of Trial once again lit up and going in against the Wild Riders. Over here, you can see the Branch Wraith has actually routed off. The Deepwood Scouts are now chipping away at my rear, but I can't really do anything about that. I need to get these Wild Riders off me. You can see I'm trying to blind deal with these Wild Riders, hitting them with some serious debuffs and keeping the Ushapti in the fray. The Ushapti are just so tanky. They're going to do a great job here. They're going to help deal with these guys. And you can see the second unit of Ushapti still able to keep firing. These Wild Riders getting chipped down, having a terrible day. And another Realm of Souls, and actually the last proc going down, providing me with heals. And my opponent, unfortunately, he's going to have a bunch of Ushapti spawn on top of his Deepwood Scouts, who are immediately going to start cleaving through them. Deepwood Scouts really can't hold up to Ushapti. That's just kind of a rule. Over here, the Wild Riders getting annihilated. We do pop another Inherit's Incantation of Protection just to get our heals off. You can see that it's not going to heal a whole bunch. It's I don't even know if it's a couple dozen points of healing, but every little bit counts, I figure. And you can see here in the back line, these are Ushapti already up to 24 kills against Deepwood Scouts, just hewing through them, cleaving through these poor elves. And now the arrow fire is going to start pouring in. You can see these guys already up to 30 plus kills. My opponent's huge blob here was a really big mistake from him. And although the Ushapti, you can see the Ushapti just completely demolished these guys. The Deepwood Scouts get dumpstered. The Wild Riders are pushing in, and I don't have the tools ready to stop them. But they kind of just bypass my spears. But the Tomb Guard has won the front line. They're surrounding the Blade Lord and beating him down. And really at this point, it's just the handful of Wild Riders, the Branch Wraith, the Blade Lord. And that's basically it. So looking at the comps, I definitely made some serious mistakes. I got my Hekar and Horseman beaten up prematurely. Honestly, I didn't even have to get them that badly beaten up. If I was a little more responsive, I could have gotten them out of dodge a little faster. I should have been a little more alert with throwing the Ushapti into the path of the Wild Riders. That would have probably saved one more unit of archers. Should have been better with my spearman positioning as well. For my opponent's side of things, definitely the fact that he kept his Wild Riders in reserve way too long until basically I'd already beaten the Dryads, I think was a major mistake. That was basically 2,200 points doing nothing. Also, the Deepwood Scouts I think are a little bit of a questionable pick. For 4 units of Deepwood Scouts, that's 3 Way Watchers. Or a unit of Deep... Actually, never mind. They cost 20. They cost 700 apiece. I thought they cost 800, but no. At 700 apiece, it's still almost 3 units of Way Watchers, actually. My opponent could have probably cut some corners here or there, or a single unit of Way Watchers and the regiment of renowned Way Watchers, which I would both think would be better options in this situation, because that AP fire is much more valuable, I think, than Deepwood Scouts non-AP. Because if your opponent brings a bunch of shielded units, they're going to negate your firing no matter what. If your opponent brings a bunch of constructs, you need AP. So, and to shut down archers, Way Watchers, and Deepwood Scouts will do about a similar job. So, I don't know. I don't think the Deepwood Scouts were the greatest idea, but otherwise, very cool build. It was very interesting to see a Glade Lord in action. And I didn't realize he had that banner. I think that must have been implemented in one of the more recent patches, because I remember looking at him right after the game was right after right after Mortal Empires hit, and thinking that he didn't really get much of anything to improve him. But I think he got this recently, and I think it's a huge buff. If you can make your melee units that much better as Wood Elves, that could definitely be potent, and I'll definitely be looking into it and looking into using that. Nonetheless, great game to my opponent's formation here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it entertaining and all that sort of stuff. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, any criticism, anything, questions, anything like that, be sure to share them, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.